It's been a while. It's been a minute. I get it. But, I get out on the road. I'm doing these investigations with Jason Hawes, and we get really busy. And then, weeks go by, and I get back, and then I'm editing the investigations so that we can distribute them. And then all of a sudden I realize, holy cow, I haven't done an interview. We haven't done a discussion in weeks. So that's what I'm here to do today. So I'm going to give you a minute to file into all the various platforms, but we're going to be talking about a lot today. But before we get to our guest, whose name is Alex Gaska, she's a psychic, medium, demonologist, paranormal investigator, among other things. I want to remind you, we've got some new investigations that have just hit. And if you haven't seen them yet, you need to go to YouTube. And I know you might be watching this channel on YouTube, but the investigations are on Jason Hawes' YouTube channel. So if you're on YouTube, just go to @JasonHawes. You'll find his channel pretty easily. There's a lot there, actually. We've done probably, 20 or so investigations over the course of the last year. Our most recent one just hit was it Monday night? It was just this last Monday night. And it was where? Oh, it was the Jim Jones Boyhood Church. If you're familiar with the story of Jim Jones, you know exactly why this is an important investigation. If you're not familiar with the story of Jim Jones, I urge you to look it up because it is an incredible, although very macabre story. It's actually a very sad story. It's a very tragic story. If you were alive in 1978, you probably have those images burned into your head forever. Anybody who saw the news reports of what happened on November 18th, 1978, will never forget it. If you don't know what I'm talking about, there's actually an interview on Jason Hawes' YouTube channel that I did with the owner of the church. And you can watch that interview. It's about 30 minutes long, and it'll tell you the basics of the story and why the church is important. But we did the investigation. That investigation is up. You can watch that. It's actually, in addition to being very serious, there's some comical moments, some very funny moments. If you're familiar with some of the stuff we've done in the past, you probably know what that means. At the same time, we've got a tour of the church that you can watch, and it was the Boyhood Church where Jim Jones, as a 2-year-old, started attending, and he went to this church, and I'll use a pun here, religiously, until he was 16 years old. He didn't just go on Sundays. He was there every day. He was a zealot. He was very committed to this church and this religion, and it's where his mind was formed. Now, I'm not going to say that means that that's where what ended up happening at the end of his life. He wasn't taught that there necessarily, but that's where he started down the path. So check it out. It's on Jason Hawes' YouTube channel. We've got more investigations coming up as well. Hi, Gina. Good to see you. Thanks for stopping in and saying hello. I know a lot of people are checking in, and I will be catching up and saying hello when I get them in here. I just want to get going here so we can get our guest in. Another thing we've got happening in the very near future, and I want you to mark this in your calendars, September 5th through the 7th, Scaricon. If you've followed me over the past 15 years, I guess, you know that I have run a horror convention, horror film, horror movie, horror fan convention called Scaricon. It started in 2011, so it's 14 years ago, and we took a hiatus because of the COVID situation. It kind of messed things up. It's coming back this year. Now, it's not going to be quite as big as it was the last time we held it in 2019 because we want to start a little modestly or restart a little modestly, but it's happening. It's in downtown Syracuse at the Hotel Syracuse Marriott, and it is September 5th through the 7th. The guests are already being announced. There's some great ones already announced, and there's some great ones in the works. So if you are a horror fan and you're in the Northeast, anywhere within driving distance or even flying distance for that matter, of Syracuse, New York, you're going to want to check it out again. It's the reboot of Scaricon. My daughter is actually running it because I told her she loves it. I do too, but I just don't have the time to do this because it's intense. It's a lot of work. So she's running it, and anytime if you reach out to the Facebook page or the ticketing information or all that, it's her and her team that's comprised of the Fuzz on the Lens folks. If you've seen the movie Terrifier, if you know Terrifier, Fuzz on the Lens was a producer of Terrifier films, and we're connected to them because my daughter's married to one of them. Long story. Either way, it's going to be a great event. What else do I need to talk about before we get going here? Oh, looks like, okay, I did that. Okay, yeah, we're moving right along here. So today we're going to be talking with Alex Gaska. Alex is a psychic, medium, demonologist, also a paranormal investigator. We're really anxious to get her take on a whole bunch of things, and I am excited to bring her into the program. Alex, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here.
Hi, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Now, the first thing I have to say is I intentionally left, when I was talking about Scaricon, I left the name of my daughter out because I wanted to tell you my daughter's also named Alex, so that's kind of fun for me.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. And
yeah, good name.
It's a great name, especially for a girl. I think it's fantastic.
Heck yeah.
Gina was sick on Monday, so you watched. Thank you, Gina. Thanks for that. And you've got to tell me again before we get going here. Tell me about the image that's over your left shoulder there.
So I started to paint the nun, and it turned out really good, and people started to request it, and I didn't expect it to turn out as good as it did, the ginormous one, so I ended up hanging it up in my living room, and now it tends to definitely draw attention every morning on my TikTok lives, or when people come to the home for readings or anything. It tends to draw quite a bit of attention.
Are you a horror film fan?
Yeah, I am.
Oh, nice. So you've probably been to some conventions. Have you ever done any of the horror conventions?
Sadly, no. I haven't been able to travel as much as I'd like to because of some health issues with my dog and such. I'm hoping to start traveling soon, hopefully.
Now, you're in New York City, right? Are you in Manhattan? Where are you?
I'm not in the city. I'm in Western New York. Closer to where you're going to have your convention,
okay.
Actually. I think still about 3 hours out. But yeah, so we're kind of in a little nook that's hidden, but very historic, very haunted. There's been like multiple books written about the hauntings in this area, actually.
Well, I did see that you were from the Buffalo area, so I'm assuming that's what you're talking about. And one of my questions to you is going to be about that, because I know that Lilydale isn't very far from Buffalo, and there's a lot of spiritual activity there. The Fox sisters are from that area. There's really quite a historic legacy of hauntings and spirituality in that Western New York area. I imagine that's influenced you in some way.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I was kind of drawn to all the ghost stuff, even from a young age. My father was talking to me about the Hotel Henry hauntings and stuff like that. So I've really been intrigued with the area since I was little, not really understanding why, but yeah, it's kind of cool because the times that I haven't been able to travel, you can really stay in and around this area, and it's like you can never get enough. You're never really getting everything all at once, so you could there's so much to investigate here publicly, not even having to rent out a location. But then there's great places to rent out around here too, so.
Yeah, I know that Ghost Hunters, and as you probably know, I'm involved with Jason Hawes from Ghost Hunters. We do a lot of projects together, but Ghost Hunters filmed at a number of places in the Buffalo area. Grand Central Terminal, is that right? Am I saying that right? And Iron Island, I think, is another one.
Yeah,
there's a whole bunch of them up in that area. And then the last Scaricon we did was actually in Rochester. It wasn't even in Syracuse. We had to move it to Rochester for 2019. That's even closer to you. Hopefully, you'll be able to make it out. I was going to say, if you were in New York City, there's some major horror conventions in New York City area. There's Monster Mania, and there's Chiller Theater. There's some really great ones down there. And if you were a New York resident, that would have been kind of probably a bus ride for you, or whatever. So it would have been really easy. But we're not here to talk horror. We're here to talk more about you. And I want to know, because you do so much, how did all of this get started for you?
So It's a long story, and I'm going to try and shorten it for everyone, but since I was a kid, I had these abilities, and I didn't know what they were, and then moving into the house that my parents still have to this day, I was about 4 or 5 years old moving in there, and I was having some pretty wicked experiences, seeing shadow figures, getting grabbed, like very, very, not light activity, very much oppressive, even demonical phenomena was really happening in the home. And it just kind of snowballed into everybody started to experience things. It got to the point where I was experiencing so much that even at a young age, my parents, once I hit an age where psychological factors could be into play, they actually took me to get evaluated, not once, not twice, not three times, like multiple times, to make sure that there wasn't something, other going on, because the attacks and the activity was really exclusive to me as a kid up until you got into that second stage of oppression where it's not really after nobody's really excluded from anything at that point. So there was a failed exorcism in my parents' house a few years back while I had abilities and while I had already been studying demonology. So that propelled me to want to help people even more.
All right, I have so many questions. Okay, so first of all, let me back up to your parents and how they reacted to some of what was going on with you, and they took you for a psychiatric evaluation. Right? That was a psychiatric evaluation, basically? They want to make sure.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
That's such a common story, and I want to know what your thoughts are about that. I mean, parents, obviously, they're just trying to do the best for their children, and they think there might be a problem, and I would say sometimes that is the case. That's what's going on. In your case, that's not what was going on. It was something very different. But what are your thoughts about that? Because sometimes I think that when a parent does that for a child, it almost talks them out of their ability or kind of pushes them away from this natural ability they might have. What do you think about that?
So, there's a couple different feelings. It's like, maybe you should have listened to your kid, but at the same time, I truly believe that they did what they should have done, because you need a healthy level of skepticism when people are coming up to you saying, I'm seeing this, I'm doing that, because you can't if I believed, people could come up to me and say they're possessed. If I believe them right off the bat, what kind of investigator or demonologist really am I? So I think they did the best thing, because that really debunks and makes sure that there isn't a logical explanation to what I was experiencing. So I don't think there was anything wrong with that. I actually, when it comes down to me taking residential cases, I actually do push for a psych evaluation.
It's curious.
So I didn't think...
Yeah, no, it's curious to me because I often will talk about things that kids will talk about and see that could be explained as paranormal phenomena, and they're in a lot of cases they're told, no, that's not real. No, your imaginary friend is just your imaginary friend. It's not a real thing, and they're talked out of this stuff, and they're kind of taught to close it off. And thankfully, that didn't happen to you, but I know other people it has happened to, maybe myself included. I'm not sure, because I feel like I'm as sensitive as a brick. I really got nothing like that going on. So, do you think that that's a real phenomenon, that people kind of get talked out at a young age of having the sensitivities that they might be born with?
100%, especially because of if we look at like how we kind of were raised and everything, a lot of this was taboo back in the day. You would have been thrown into a psych ward for even saying you had anxiety, let alone you're seeing things out of the corner of your eye, you're hearing voices that aren't really there, that would have gotten you put away back in the day. So I do think that it does shut people off, and a lot of times, as it's not become more taboo, there are still people that say they don't believe in it out of fear. And, when your kid comes up to you saying like, oh, mommy, daddy, I think I see dead people or something. Parents don't always react great to that and kind of shut it down out of their own fear. And I have seen it close people off and children to the point where then I've had clients come to me later bringing their 15, 16, 17-year-old kids saying like they're having these experiences and I didn't listen to them when they were younger. So I do believe that people do shut it down a little too much sometimes, because the thing is, when you're a kid, you're not taught limits, you're not taught fears. So your mind is like a sponge. You're going to experience a lot more, because believing is actually seeing. It's not seeing, it's believing. So when you have nothing to compare or anything to, your kids are going to be very susceptible and very open to spiritual encounters.
Let's talk about something else that you said in your first answer to my first question. You said there was an exorcism, did you say a failed exorcism, or just an exorcism performed in the house that you grew up in? Was that part of your family, or that happened before your family moved in?
So this happened while we were living there, and it was a local exorcism. It was not an exorcism on a person. It was a deliverance of the home. It was getting to the point where it was going to try and take over, and after it being failed, it did try to invade and possess people in the home. But yeah, that actually happened. I'm trying to think what year that might have been. Maybe 2017. I had already been studying demonology.
Alex, that's only a couple of years ago. That's not that long ago.
It really wasn't.
Wow. Okay, so I need to know more about this, though. So it was an exorcism of the home. What was going on in the home at the time that prompted, and whoever made the decision to call in an exorcist, what were they seeing, and why they decided to take that route?
So, I mean, it had been a peak and fade kind of thing since I was a kid, and I'd be telling people about the stuff that was happening, but as it progressed into my teenagers or even carrying out, it was just getting to a point where everyone was experiencing activity. I mean, my friend had gotten choked in my parents' house. People, we would try to have friends over, and people were watching the coffee maker start on its own accord, a hairdryer. That feeling of being choked, getting weird scents. I'd have company over, and it would sound like my mom came home with groceries, and it sounds like people are banging stuff around, and you go out there and nothing is out of place. The physical attacks just got to an extent when it got to the point where we were like, oh, maybe we should call someone. I had been trying to convince everyone, something needs to be done about this home. Especially, I had been studying this stuff, so I kept saying, I was like, something's not right with this home. You definitely need to do something. And at the time, my brother had a significant other. She came to hang out while she was waiting for him to come home from work. She had her phone plugged in his room. We were in my room. We were painting. I all of a sudden start getting text messages from her phone that she's not anywhere near. And when it looks like a bunch of random letters, but when I'm putting it into Google, it's telling me that this is some kind of different language, possibly Latin. So then I'm like, that's funny. Then I start to get more messages from her phone, and they pop up as GIFs. Those little video GIFs that people send? One of them says, "You're tacky and I hate you." And the next one shows the Aladdin genie coming out of the bottle, which can signify a jinn entity, actually. So right then and there, I was like, well, that's not good. We should try to cleanse. I start getting ready to try and cleanse my room, and my brother's girlfriend, she yelps a little bit, and she's like, I feel something burning me. Can you check my back? And she's got jabs in her back. So I'm trying to cleanse and everything. And at that time, my sage lit on fire. I mean, it went from a normal, smudge, cleansing the room and everything, to physically being on fire, and the room was so smoky, even with the window open. Kind of felt like the room was spinning, too. It was a really weird sensation, which all of this is very common with demonical phenomena, honestly. And from that point on, she called her mom. Her mom actually introduced me to one of my very first mentors who had a connection to an exorcist in the area. So from that point on, I ended up trying to talk to my parents outside of the house, saying hey, I need you to contact this person. This is getting serious. And anytime you would think about it, talk about it in the home, you would actually feel a presence come over you. And if anyone's ever felt anything dark, if there is something negative or lower, and I'm talking demonic, there's an unmistakable sense of evil. There's no denying it. So by that time, we contact the exorcist. It took about a week for them to get out there. by the last night, the activity was getting so severe. I mean, my mom was getting sexually assaulted. People were getting bruised. I mean, her bra was getting snapped on her while she was trying to sleep. You were feeling people lay in the bed. The dogs were reacting. And even the one day, my brother, I don't know how he didn't notice. He came into the kitchen, tried to grab something, and we're trying not to talk about anything in the home. Everyone was so terrified that we're sleeping in the same room. The chandelier went from doing this to swaying back and forth above his head. And the second he walked away, it came to a pin stop. So it was swaying so heavily, we thought that was going to come and fall onto his head. So by that point, we actually took the animals, went to a hotel for the night, and met up with the exorcist the next morning. So the reason why it failed had to do at the time. Now, my mom is sober and clean now, but there is a very severe addiction, and what a lot of people don't understand with exorcism or extraction is that you have to meet the exorcist halfway, because for an entity to come in, it's going to be through law of invitation or law of attraction, or both. And with my parents struggling with their addiction, they weren't ready to make the changes necessary to keep it at bay after the exorcist went and did his job. So very common for entities to come back after an exorcism a few days after, and that's basically what happened.
That's quite a story.
It is. It's a long one.
No, it's not necessarily long. It's just very, very detailed, and in some ways troubling. Obviously, anytime you're dealing with that type of force, it's a troubling situation. When you talk about addictions, I know that, first of all, let me just kind of give a footnote here. I have never, and I've done hundreds of investigations, I have never been in an investigation where I have thought I'm dealing with a demon. I have been in investigations where I have thought I'm dealing with something dark, malicious, grumpy, just unhappy or whatever, but never have I felt like I'm dealing with a demon. So I don't know this experience fully. I can only go by what I hear you telling me and what I've heard others tell me about these types of experiences. But one of the things that is very common in these stories is that the demon or the demonic entity will enter through a person who has an addiction issue, an abuse issue. These are vulnerable people, and they become prey for this type of activity. And based on your story, I'm hearing that you may be able to confirm that's kind of what happened in your case.
Yes. While I was living there, I was targeted because I was the main source of telling people what was going on. After leaving the home, the main targets were the people struggling with addiction severely. And that did get to a point where my mom actually found my father contorted. He's passed on now, but he struggled with sciatic issues. And if anybody knows how severe that is, you can't bend at all. You can't, forward, let alone backwards. Now, he wasn't going to the bathroom or anything. She found him completely contorted backwards, over and curved around the toilet.
Wow.
And he couldn't get out of it. He didn't know what part of the house he was in. And she had to physically get him, he was almost stuck like that.
So the exorcism failed. The entity returned. By the way, people who are just joining us, we're talking with Alex Gaska. Alex is a psychic, medium, demonologist, paranormal investigator, among other things. Her website is alexgaska, gaska.com. And she offers a number of services on the website if you're interested in reaching out. The exorcism failed. The entity returned. Did you say your mom still lives in the same house?
She does. I recently even did an investigation in there. Very careful, of course, while I was live, trying to not contact anything negative. I'm not trying to stir anything, but you can very much see how much negative energy still is in that home, even though there's nobody with a severe addiction in that home or any sort of addiction at all at this point. the land is haunted in itself. There's a lot of animosity that happened within that home and on the land that the entity is still drawn to. So she has to be very careful to not trigger and kind of have that balance, almost like how you see people with haunted homes have a little bit of negative stuff there, but they don't focus on that.
So you're basically, what you're telling me then is the activity still exists, the energy is still there to a degree, but she's able to manage it.
Yes, I help her manage it. She also is very careful. She has a bit of abilities herself, but she doesn't do anything that I do. She's a little bit afraid of it, so anytime she needs help, I actually have. I practice shamanism, so I've done rites and initiations and everything. So I do extraction now. The past few years, I've done extraction. So anytime she's needed a little bit of work done on the house or help, I've kind of helped her to tone it down and keep it under wraps and try to avoid attracting anything like that.
Have you been able to determine the source of this activity? I mean, again, we'll use your words, demon. Have you been able to name it? Have you been able to figure out where it came from, why it came? You mentioned the ground being haunted or the property being haunted or whatever. Is there something that happened there that you believe is connected to this? Do you have like background information about what's going on?
Yeah, so not only is the land super haunted because the War of 1812 was coming right through North Tonawanda, the town that I'm in, actually. My parents' street specifically, there's a lot of rumor that there is a massacre or some kind of battle with Native Americans over the land. The street itself, I haven't found research on the Native Americans. I have found that they were in the area. I did find that there was a stream like that. My parents' street actually used to be a stream. And you will hear like Native American flutes. I've heard that before on my parents' property. So that I concluded, especially with all the violence that happened on the land. However, with the people, there's always a root to the problem. I do believe with my parents' addiction, not only that, but I do believe there was a family curse involved at one point. So I think there is a couple different correlations that were kind of stirring the pot for a perfect disaster, paranormal disaster, if you will.
So you mentioned that when this activity started to occur, you had already begun down your path of studying demonology and working, with your psychic abilities, your mediumship abilities, and all of that. And you may have mentioned this, but I just want some clarification on it. Do you feel like that you deciding to take that path somehow influenced this activity, made it more aggressive, or something along those lines?
I'm sure it didn't help having somebody working with their abilities, and also, I was not certified at the time. I got certified after the fact, so I wasn't even familiar at that time with grounding, cleansing, or protecting properly. I was just doing what I had taught myself. So that definitely, absolutely had to exacerbate whatever was going on in that home. I'm sure that helped stir the pot quite a bit. So yeah, that wasn't the greatest on my end.
Well, you got to, if that's what you choose as a life path, you can't let something like a demon interfere with that. You got to move ahead, right? I mean, that's what you wanted to do.
Exactly. It's my purpose here. I know everything I go through and I experience with this. I believe I experienced a lot of evil negativity from entities and things like that as a kid, so that I would learn discernment to be able to help people now. That's definitely my purpose here.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that was actually where I was going next. On your website, I think it says, and forgive me for reading this, but I want to get it right. You say you were brought here to heal people and show them that there is life after death. Talk about that a little bit, because I think the biggest question all of us face in our lives is what happens when our lives are over. If part of your life's work is to help people understand that, I'd like to hear a little bit about what you think about that.
So, Yeah, definitely. When it comes to helping people have an experience and understand that there is life after death, it's a certain amount of closure, because a lot of people think that when we pass away, it is just black, like nothing happens. Which is, I mean, if we go down to quantum physics, it's energy is created. It cannot be created or destroyed. It can only change states. Um, so when we're talking about that, when people pass away, there's a transitional period, and people actually, your soul knows you're going to pass several weeks before you actually do. And being able to give an opportunity to people, and even people come to me that are skeptical. It's healing in the sense that you're getting a different perspective in life. You're gaining clarity, and it helps the grieving process, because being able to communicate and show people that your loved ones are still your family on the other side, you will be reunited with them, and that they're not actually that far dimensionally and everything. It's really just a visit away. It's truly like if you were to go to your family's house later, your family will visit you. Talking about them, anything like that. So I do feel that I give a sense of healing that a doctor can't. I'm not a medical professional. I do not substitute professional advice by any means, but to give clarity and help people grieve, and to help people even part of the psychic ability, being able to pick up on their current situations and even help ease a difficult situation. It's very healing. I've seen people make complete turnarounds in their life after realizing that it's okay to move forward, because you're not moving forward without your loved one. It's a transitional period. It's just change.
So Care Bear in our YouTube chat is nodding her head. Obviously you can't see that, but she says that's what I believe. So you're striking a nerve there. Gina wants to know, kind of taking a step back to something we were talking about just a minute ago, if you have a hard time determining when someone reaches out to you for help, for serious help, particularly like if there's claims of a demon or some type of serious activity like that, do you have a hard time determining if there's a mental health issue or if they really have a possession issue? I mean, how do you make that?
So I can discern that, but mind you, like I said, I'm not the medical professional. So when it comes to, I think there's a demon in my house, I think there's something more negative, I think I'm possessed, that's where the psych evaluation comes in. And that's where I need to be involved or know what comes from the psych evaluation. And it's not just a psych evaluation. It doesn't stop there. I need to know what medications you're on we're going to be talking to a pharmacist next. Or whoever is prescribing your medication, because I need to know the side effects to be sure that you're not experiencing something that correlates to your medication or something that correlates to a mental health concern. So that, in itself, that will actually usually separate, mental health from. However, a lot of times people don't even want to go through with the psych evaluation, so that kind of just weaves people out in itself. But yeah, I can tell usually talking to people.
I don't know if you're going to agree or disagree with me, but one of the things that for doing this for all the years I've been doing it, and I found that when somebody says either they themselves are possessed or they know somebody that's been possessed, 99.6% of the time, it is not demonic. It is something else going on, whether, as you said, it's psychological, it's medicinal, it's environmental, it's, can be a host of a bunch of other things before it actually can boil down to something being demonic.
I couldn't agree more, because I can't, and that's what I was saying when we first started, healthy level of skepticism. I'm a medium. I believe, you don't have to convince me to believe your situation. However, a healthy level of skepticism, as an investigator, you have to debunk. But really, when it comes down to demonic entities, these are inhuman spirits, and the activity between a human spirit and an inhuman spirit, yes, they can be manipulative and whatnot, but 9 times out of 10, there's a reasonable cause or an answer to what's going on, whether it is the home, whether it's environmental, psychological. It's not, I don't get many cases where there's an actual entity. There are cases where there's something negative and it is physically or mentally impacting them wrongfully, but the times that it's even just that, there's usually other factors involved.
Let's talk about house cleansing. You do that.
Yeah.
You help people with homes that need to be spiritually cleansed. Walk me through that process. First of all, what would a typical client say to you that makes you respond with, you know what, we really need to do a cleansing of your home? And then walk me through how that cleansing would take place.
So that actually will depend on what the situation is, because I do believe you could do a basic cleansing where it's like, oh, you know what, I've been having a rough week, just weird energy, and I just, that would be a basic cleansing where I would go through with very simple herbs, whether that's blue sage, whether that's lavender, bay leaves or rosemary even. That could be a very simple cleansing where you would just start from the bottom up, the lowest level of the house up, and make your way and make sure that there is a window or something open for the energy to exit. And then I would, after cleansing, you want to invoke an energy. You don't want to leave it just open for whatever to occupy that space. So I would then invoke archangels, God, Jesus, Mother Mary, Pachamama, whoever I work with, or whoever they work with, depending on their cultural background, whatever their practice calls them to do. So that would be a more basic cleansing, whereas if someone's like, oh, you know what, I think my home might have something negative, that's where sometimes I even go into it and I'm like, do you really want to pay for a remote cleansing if you're really having this activity? I'll ask for a little bit of evidence. At that point, then I would offer, once a psych evaluation or whatnot, I would offer to physically go there, collect evidence. And from there, depending on what activity or what I sense there, is what type of cleansing I would get or go to do. For like one residential place client I took, the case, it seemed like it was going to be an in and out thing. And it was just a negative spirit, but he didn't leave with the basic cleansing. I had to go back to the property and actually do a crossing over. And then I actually had to go through, do the cleanse again, and mark the four corners of the property to kind of conceal, don't feel. So, it really depends on, it's very much case by case. I don't just have one cleansing that I do, because even with herbs or smoking, there's waters, there's oils, there's simmer pots, there's gritting. I kind of will, depending on the situation, see and feel what is needed.
We've got Barbara in our YouTube chat saying that she actually saw her uncle, the fact that her uncle was going to pass away a couple of weeks before anybody knew he was even sick. And I asked her in the chat here, I said, how did you know that? And she said, it was shown to me as a faucet. It was weird seeing a faucet attached to my uncle. And then she said a blue energy was pouring out of it. It wasn't dripping. It was on, and it was not on full force, but it was coming out and it couldn't be turned off. And she interpreted that as her uncle dying, and he did. Have you ever heard of anything like that?
Yes, as a medium or somebody that has abilities, even a psychic can experience this, because a psychic and a medium are not the same. A medium is always a psychic, but a psychic is not always a medium. But psychic or psychic medium, you can experience what is called messenger of death syndrome, where you will actually get a little inkling that someone's going to pass away days before. It could be a day, it could be hours, but yeah, that's called messenger of death syndrome. Wow.
She said, it makes me wonder why or who was showing me this. I was at my dad's funeral and he was showing me this. That's really strange. I want to talk to you a little bit about paranormal investigations. This the 45 minutes we have together is zipping by here. You do paranormal investigations on your website. It says we will come. Do you have a team? Who's the we?
No, I don't have a team anymore. So it would just be me, or unless I bring a friend. Or I do work remotely as well. I've done a lot of remote work. Honestly, 90% of my clients do not live anywhere near me. So
I think that's common these days. You can do everything through the magic of these cameras and computers and stuff. And phones. Talk to me a little bit about the type of investigations you do. Everybody has different equipment they like to use. Everybody approaches it from a different perspective. How do you do it?
So the way that I go about, I actually, first off, let's say I'm going to whether a haunted location or a residential case. I don't want to know anything about the history first. I'm going to do my psychic walkthrough, whether it's remotely or physically there. I'm going to write down everything I'm picking up, and then I'm going to compare and contrast with history. I'm going to be looking at property records. I'm going to be going to the historical society of that town or wherever your home is. I mean, I'm going to be doing a deep dive. I don't really care for surface level investigation. I'm not going to come into your home and be like, is there a spirit here right now? And I'm not judging people that do that, but the type of investigation that I work with, I really try to do a deep dive and get to the root of the problem, see why people are lingering there, see, you know what I mean? Are they making an emotional attachment to the family? Are they attached to the home, the land, an object in the home? Is there a portal? So with my investigations, after I do the psychic walkthrough, any history, I'll actually write up questions prior to, because you can, as a psychic medium or anybody, when you enter a home or a place that is paranormally charged, you could get foggy. You could take on that energy. You're not going to remember what questions you want to ask. So I will go through and I will write out questions that are directed towards what's going on with the family and directed to the spirits that could be there. And I kind of mix the history with my psychic ability because, as we know, not everything in history is documented. So there's some things that I could be picking up that align, but just were never told. So I really base questions off of what I'm feeling and the history and what the client is experiencing, or haunted location, what type of activity is there. And yeah, the type of equipment I will use, now that I do investigations on my own, I kind of have to build up equipment again. I really love I kind of go simple. I don't think you need to spend a bunch of money to get incredible evidence. So I'm good with a REM pod. I like the Ovilus 6. I do enjoy that. That will kind of bounce off of what I pick up on a lot of the time. And that makes it easier because a lot of people are like, well, how do you know what words make sense? And being a medium, I'm able to articulate, like, if it's just getting something from the environment or if it's, So, I like the Ovilus. I like using a REM pod. EMFs are okay. I just prefer the REM pod because that makes noise as well. And then
it's got pretty light. It's got pretty lights too. Let's face it. It's just fun to watch the lights go on and off, right?
Exactly. So yeah, and another technique. It's a little bit different than SDs. I've seen some people on TikTok doing this. I think Kelsey Davies called it a green light method. I'm not sure if there's a different name for it. But instead of sorry.
Someone is not happy.
He's like, wait, this isn't my show?
It's always about the dog. Mine, if mine could get in here, believe me, it'd be all over the camera and the microphone, but she can't get in here.
But yeah, so basically, the headphones, instead of putting it in and plugging it into a spirit box, I'll actually put headphones on that are noise canceling, place myself in a different room, and I will have another person asking me questions quietly enough so that I cannot hear them. If I hear any mumbling, I'm yelling out, I hear you, you need to be, move, get in a different room, I can't. I don't want to hear anything they're asking, but you kind of end up using the medium as a spirit box and just channel, and you end up getting a lot of cool responses from that as well.
You were talking about you can get foggy. You go into these investigations, you can take some of that energy on and get foggy. That's me every day before coffee. You have to understand that. Until I've had my coffee, it must be spirits in my head because I can't think, I can't do anything. Coffee is the cure to that for me.
Oh, absolutely.
I like to hear. I like the fact that you said you like to keep it simple because when Jason and I do our investigations, basically all we have. Sometimes we'll use a digital recorder. mirror. Sometimes we'll use, we have a REM pod, we'll use that. We've got a couple other flux devices that'll measure changes in the environment, whether it's EMF or it's vibration or temperature changes, things like that. But those are just measuring the environment. They're not looking for ghosts or measuring ghosts, which I think in many cases is just a folly. You have to measure the environment, and but beyond that, we tell people all of the time: use your eyes, use your ears. If you've got a good video camera, you're prepared to catch things, and stop looking at a screen all the time. Whether it's a phone app or a tablet app or a computer, people who have their heads buried in a screen are missing everything in my book.
Absolutely, yeah, they are for sure. It's like just set the camera down and go do your thing.
So Barbara has another question here that she wants me to ask, and I'm trying to understand it. Why do people? I'm going to read it the way it's written here, and maybe you'll understand it better than me. Here we go. When people go to prisons or asylums, they ask about their crime or whatever, but why not bring up happy childhood memories? Okay, so I guess what she's saying is, why don't people, when they try to reach out to spirits in a location, talk about happy things versus, a murder or a death or a suicide or whatever? And what's your approach when it comes to something like that?
I do believe that people like to pay to be scared, so then they want to maybe capitalize on that a little bit, or and even if not, it just ends up being, oh man, I'm so scared, that's kind of cool, and so people kind of roll with that. And I think people think that getting negative responses equates to wild, cool activity. So I want to say, for me personally, I try to talk to a spirit like you would talk to a person. Just have a conversation. People that want to talk are going to want to come up to you and talk. If you just treat them like people, you're going to have a lot better of a time.
Okay, so it's okay. Can the dog hear me?
Yeah, he can.
Hey, puppers. Hey there, puppers. Hey there. Hey there, puppers. Hi, puppers.
There's another dog outside, so he's like, "Oh my god!"
Oh, that'll get him going for sure. What's your dog's name?
His name's Cooper.
Cooper. Well, I live in Cooperstown, Cooper. So perfect. Oh
my gosh.
Hey, Cooperstown. Oh man, too funny. So you, we only have a couple of minutes left here, Alex. But I wanted to ask you about, you did an appearance on what the heck was it? Paranormal Caught on Camera. Is that right?
I did. Yeah, I was very lucky to be able to do that. We experienced some pretty crazy phenomena at the Conjuring House, and I was recording on my TikTok live. All of our cameras kept dying, so I was just recording on my TikTok live to just try to catch anything I could. Going back upstairs to get the cameras, and this shadow figure manifested. Something very malevolent had been trying to mess with me the whole night. I did not feel good. I felt physically sick. I actually had fainted at one point, and people caught me, so I didn't fly down the stairs. But I was going through that middle doorway, and I got hit by a door. Something hit me kind of hard with the door. So I pushed, at the time, my significant other out of the way and flipped the camera over, and the door was swinging. And all of a sudden, as I'm panning away, the shadow figure, solid shadow figure, you could not see the door frame through this elbow. Literally kind of protruded and came towards us as we were panning away. And that kind of circulated the internet. That ended up getting on Chills, on Shadow Man, on Mind Junkie, and then next thing we know, we were getting an email from Meeting House Productions. So it was really weird too. 2 weeks prior to that, I was I feel like we're going to be on Paranormal Caught on Camera.
Well, that's funny. I'm assuming all that has happened way before the current problems with the Conjuring House. I'm sure you've paid attention to that to a degree. It's been a crazy situation. Oh, I know I was going to ask you. So, given where you're located in the Buffalo area, have you been to Rolling Hills, one of our favorite places, Rolling Hills Asylum? Have you had a chance?
I've been there a couple times. Yes, I have. The first time, I didn't experience much, but we were split up. The other people that we were with were getting all of it. And then the next time I was there, I actually chaperoned a school field trip for high schoolers, and I went there because I had the cleansing stuff. The kids were kind of scared, and they were like, we should have Alex do the chaperoning because she'll cleanse us after and all that.
Nice.
Yeah, so Nurse Emma's room was extremely active for me. I mean, like, moving dowsing rods, setting off equipment like crazy. I can't remember some of the other rooms, but yeah, I've been there before.
Did you have, and by the way, folks, if you want to check out our investigation, the Rolling Hills investigation is up on Jason Hawes' YouTube channel. Did you have any experiences in the Vortex room by any chance?
I felt a little off balance. I don't know if, I'm trying to think, I don't know if we got around to spending much time in that room the time that we rented it out because we were trying to get so much.
It's a huge place.
We were having a lot.
Yeah, it's a big place. It's a big place. Yeah.
It's almost impossible to get everything you want to get within the time frame. And we were getting so much in the morgue, in the basement level near the tub. The tub is a very active spot every time I've noticed in the basement. Or that I want to say that I don't want to say like they were like torturing, but definitely something. I've gotten a lot of hits with REM pods, with EMF, like extreme amounts in the basement.
People can't see, but Cooper's climbing around there trying to get into the shot.
He's like, this has to be my show.
Oh my God. Very comfortable in front of a camera. I love it. We've only got a couple minutes left, Alex. I want to give you an opportunity to let people know what types of services you provide. If they go to your website, what can they contact you for, and how do they start that process?
Yeah, sure. So, to book with me, my website will lead you to all of my social medias. I do have contact info on my Facebook, my Instagram. You can really reach out. However, I do professional medium readings. I do all kinds of different topics. My specialty is connecting people to their loved ones. I do cleansings. I do a little bit of energy work. I sell paintings on the side. Oop, there we go. So yeah, I'm a little bit of a jack of all trades. So really, if people just reach out and let me know, like, really what kind of help they're looking for, whether it's spiritually, if you're having paranormal troubles and you're a little bit worried, I do paranormal consults. So
I have to say, we've gotten some great response to Cooper being on camera. You might want to consider a show with just Cooper. I'm just going to throw it out there. You can host it, have Cooper be the guest constantly. I think you might have something there. Okay, so the website is your name, alexgaska.com. All of your offerings are there. People can check that out. You also, I think you may have mentioned it, but if not, classes. You help people if they feel they might want to learn or how to hone some skills and abilities. You help with that as well, and it's all there. Anything else you want to add before I let you get on with your day?
No, I just appreciate everyone's time and energy. I appreciate the good chit chat. I'm a professional yapper, so I really enjoyed this.
Yeah, it was a great time. Thank you so much for being here. Hopefully we'll get a chance to do it again. I try to do this somewhat regularly. I've been a little lax, as you heard me talking about in the beginning, just because I've been traveling so much filming. But when I get a chance, I do it. So we'll look forward to having you back sometime, Alex.
Absolutely. I really would love that. So thank you again.
All right. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day, and say goodbye to Cooper for us. Great person. Go to Alex Gaska, GASKA.com, and you can get more information about Alex's work, the things she offers her clients, a lot of stuff there that you can wade through. I do want to remind you, the new investigation is up on Jason Hawes. If you go to YouTube, just search for Jason Hawes. When you find his channel, the new one is the Jim Jones Boyhood Church. A fascinating investigation, but an even more fascinating story behind it. Again, as I mentioned in the beginning of the show, if you were alive in 1978 and you were old enough to watch TV and you saw the news coverage of what happened in Jonestown, those are images that'll never go away. You know the story well. If you don't know the story, Also on Jason Hawes's YouTube channel, there's an interview. It's before the investigation is what it's called. And it talks about what did happen with Jim Jones and his community in Guyana in South America. And it kind of offers a background to the story as to why that church was significant to us. So that's really it. I got nothing else for you today, but we will try to do this more often. Thank you so much to everybody who jumped into chat. Good to see you all. If you're listening to this as a podcast, thank you for doing that as well. We look forward again to getting some more guests and getting back in the swing of things. Have a great weekend. We'll see you all real soon.